Technical Veterinary Learning Channel, honored by Prof.Ahmed Mamdouh El-Sherif, Professor of Epidemiology and Infectious Diseases, the ex-head of Department of Veterinary Medicine, the ex-Vice Dean of Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, Bani Suef University, Egypt, presents today African horse sickness disease will be explained, clarified in several series. African horse sickness has another synonyms such as Peridisceti, Pistis equorum, Lapisti equina, Pistis equina africana, and in Sudan its synonym is Abu el-Manazir. Epidemiology of African horse sickness. Transmission of the African horse sickness virus. Generally, African horse sickness disease spreads by hematogenous insect vectors. One of the biological vectors of African horse sickness virus is the Colicoides midges species, because African horse sickness virus can replicate in the midge. Description of Colicoides species: name biting midges, or punks or noceomes. Extremely small, 1 to 1.5 centimeters. Distinct wing pattern. Only females bites. Greatest biting activity time is around dawn and dusk. However, African horse sickness disease can also be transmitted by species of mosquitoes, including Culex, Anopheles, and Aedes. Here the image and picture of these species. African horse sickness disease can also be transmitted by species of ticks such as Hyalomma and Rhizophilus. The picture of Hyalomma tick and Hyalomma Rhizophilus tick are cleared here in this slide. According to later vectors of African horse sickness and the transmission of it, the peak of African horse sickness disease is reported usually late summer to early autumn. Animal risk factor. Decrease susceptibility to African horse sickness occur in the following animals. Horses are the most affected animal by African horse sickness, followed by mules, then by donkeys and zebra. The role of zebra in African horse sickness disease transmission. African horse sickness remains endemic in zebra populations across South Africa. Zebra harbor the African horse sickness virus and are often the source of sudden outbreaks in African countries. African horse sickness virus overwinters in zebras in Kruger National Park in South Africa, from where it spreads westwards and southwards every year. This be documented by several researchers. Dogs are one of these animal species which become infected by eating infected meat by African horse sickness virus. At 1987 to 1990 outbreak in Spain, dogs that didn't consume infected meat were found to be seropositive, that given the suggestion of infection by arthropods or hematogenous bites. Dogs infected with African horse sickness virus may have the pulmonary form of the disease. In a survey in Egypt, antibodies against African horse sickness virus were detected in sheep, goats, camels, buffaloes, and dogs, but most research have to be done on the small ruminants and the camels and buffaloes for more explanation about their role in transmission of the disease. Camels and elephants in nomadic areas in Africa that in contact with zebras are also act as animal risk factors. Zoonotic importance of African horse sickness described as the following. There is no evidence that humans can be infected by field strains of the disease. However, intranasal exposure to neurotropic vaccine strains has caused encephalitis and rhinitis in humans that done these vaccine to the animals population. Geographic distribution of African horse sickness all over the world. All serotypes of African horse sickness virus occur in Eastern and Southern African countries. This distribution reflects the geographical pattern of zebras. Zebra cycling the African horse sickness virus asymptomatically and probably serve as a reservoir of this virus. This map explains the world geographical distribution of African horse sickness from 1944 up to 1991, where the orange color describes the endemic countries. The pink color describes the outbreaks occur outside Africa in Morocco, Spain, and Portugal at 1987 to 1991. The deep yellow color 1959 up to 1966 in north of Africa and other parts south of Asia. The yellow color is reported at 1944. This map explains the world geographical distribution of African horse sickness from 1944 up to 2011 to see how many times the African horse sickness disease reported outside the African country. At the time from January to June 2019, the African horse sickness reported in Ethiopia as African country. World geographical distribution of African horse sickness at the time between July and December 2018 reported that African horse sickness present in Ethiopia and Nigeria as an African countries. That means East and West of Africa are infected. This is OIE members' official African horse sickness status map, last updated by OIE at May 2020. We noted that the color of Thailand here is deep pink color. That is the new outbreak outside of African countries. The African horse sickness reported in Thailand since late March. From later maps, we see that African horse sickness is endemic in sub-Saharan Africa. New outbreak since March up till 19th of June 2020 is in Thailand. Prevalence influenced by climatic factors as African horse sickness virus favor warmer conditions with it has spread vector available. Vectors may move best in moist, mild condition and travel long distance on the wind-borne. Morbidity and mortality of African horse sickness. Morbidity and mortality of African horse sickness varies with exposure, species, and immunity. Morbidity is dependent upon exposure load of the virus. Mortality varies with serotypes and strains, where mortality in naive horses can be high. In horses, total mortality rate ranged between 50 to 95% as following. In cardiac form, the mortality rate is about 50 to 70%. In mixed form, mortality rate is about 80%, while in pulmonary form, always fatal by means at 95%. Mortality rates in other equidae: in mules it's about 50%, in European or Asian donkey it's about 5 to 10%, none in African donkeys and zebras by means 0%. African horse sickness series to be continued. Please subscribe the channel in order to be able to access the latest information and explanations.